Ask any player or teaching pro around the state about George Amaya, and they will all have the same response. He's not in the Hall of Fame yet? How is that possible? For nearly 30 years, George has been atop or near the top of the list of Georgia tennis players.
George can hit topspin, he can rip it, he can finesse you. If you think you got him and you close the net fast, he'll flip a topspin lob over your head. And then when you try to run it down and you can't quite reach it, he'll look at you nicely and say, "Nice try, mate."
You couldn't help but be impressed.
And I saw a young guy hitting tennis balls warming up for a tennis match. And I thought it was Rod Laver Jr. He had all the same flair. He had that remarkable, unbelievable fluidness and gracefulness that Laver had demonstrated, and it was George Amaya.
But underneath the gracious style and warm smile,
George is probably the most competitive person I think I've ever met. All you have to do is ask Brian or Armistead or Larry or Hugh, these people he's been playing all these years. There's no one more competitive than George. He's a bulldog out there.
But there was more to George than rankings and championships. A lot more.
What I like about George is he's so humble.
Win or lose, he always says, "Well done, good match," and he means it.
I'll ask him how he did when he plays a tournament, and he usually says, "Played well." What I'm trying to find out is if he won or not. 9 times out of 10 he did, and finally he tells me he did. And then I asked him, "How about the doubles?" And he said, "Well, I won that as well."
George was president of the GPTA, a tireless event planner, a recognized coach of juniors, and tournament director. His role in the Atlanta Senior Invitational has helped make it one of the premier money tournaments anywhere in the United States. But it's on the grounds of the Cherokee Town and Athletic Club where he's left his stamp.
This is not a club of low-maintenance people, and I think in my 25 years of being a member, I've never heard anybody say anything negative about George, and I've never heard him say anything negative.
You know, he is a very serious competitor, but he doesn't take himself too seriously. You know, it can be like we can have a mixer that's a Halloween mixer, and George will come out there and dress up with us and have just as much fun as the C5 person who's coming out there and can barely hit the ball over. And I think that's a great characteristic that he has.
Outside of tennis, George is an expert fly fisherman and takes on life with the same ferocity he does hitting an overhead.
George attacks life with passion, whether it's playing tennis or fly fishing, or sitting at dinner and talking politics or religion or you name it. George has passion. I've taught with George. We've done clinics together, and he has more enthusiasm and passion than anybody I've ever seen.
But it's the easygoing and genteel way that people will always know George for.
He's always a gentleman, and he's always a sportsman.
He's a consummate pro, a role model, a mentoring role model for other professionals to really look up to and to follow.
So when someone calls me and tries to get in our event or someone recommends them, I always call 2 or 3 other players. And I said to Pat, "Do you know so-and-so?" And he said, "Sure, I know him." He said, "He's a fine tennis player. He can certainly play your event." And I said, "Well, Pat, what kind of person is he?" And Pat says, "Oh, he'll fit in fine. He likes people. He'll be a nice addition to your tennis benefit." On the other hand, since I've said that, Eddie, he's no George Amaya. But then he said, of course, there are very few George Amayas.
For his grace, professionalism, on-court talent, and good humor, the Georgia Tennis Foundation congratulates George Amaya, a 2005 inductee into the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame.